Imaginary tells the story of a little girl that befriends an imaginary teddy bear named Chauncey that has some sadistic plans for her. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a look at Imaginary, that was released in 2024 and directed by Jeff Wadlow. I finally got the chance to go to the theaters and check this one out, and I really went into it pretty blind. I watched the first teaser trailer when it came out because the ad looked interesting and it was everywhere. So other than that first little teaser trailer, I really didn't know what to expect in this movie. I just knew it was a Blumhouse horror picture we usually get every year. It looked like a pretty generic, basic Blumhouse release. I was hoping that it would surprise me and be something really cool and interesting, but unfortunately, it was very generic, which we'll get into later. It basically tells the story of this woman that moves back to her childhood home with her new husband and her new stepchildren, which are two daughters. One is a 15-year-old teenager and one is a little girl. I'm not sure what her age is, probably around 7 or 8 years old. And these secrets that were forgotten by the stepmother start to unravel themselves when her youngest stepdaughter befriends a teddy bear and starts talking to it and starts doing this ritual that is requested by the imaginary friend named Chauncey, which will conjure up some very evil things. I would say let's get into what I liked about the movie, but really it'll be a very short topic because this movie just all around did not work for me at all. It was super generic, super basic. I'm just getting really tired of these Blumhouse releases that we get. It came off Night Swim, which you guys seen my review. I thought that one was super generic and boring. And unfortunately, this one just didn't add anything to the Blumhouse category this year in 2024. It was just super generic and boring, and I don't know, I've just felt like I've seen this movie 50 million times. By the time I was 20 minutes into it, I knew exactly what type of movie it was going to be. And I'm just really bummed out about the horror movies that are coming out in these past recent years. It just really dropped my expectations for the horror genre. I mean, we've had some good ones in the past few years. You can maybe pick a handful of good horror movies, but unfortunately, horror movies are going down a downward slope that has really just bummed me out in these past few years. Horror used to be such an interesting and great genre, and we used to get good release after good release after good release, and most of that happened before I was alive. And I feel like what horror's turned into is just directors that, from their movies, it doesn't feel like that they love movies. It feels like that they're just doing it because they know it'll get them a paycheck. Blumhouse obviously is very good at making cheap movies for huge box office numbers, and it just feels like these directors get hired by them and take these movies on because they know it's going to bring in a good payday. And it's just really a sad ordeal to think about that, because you have directors like Wes Craven and John Carpenter and David Cronenberg and Steven Spielberg in his early days. When you watch their horror movies, you could tell that they loved cinema and they loved movies, and they put their entire heart into those horror movies, and they put their entire soul into those horror movies and did the best that they could possibly do when they were writing it on the page, when they were directing it, when they were choosing the shots and the locations and the characters and the actors. You could just really tell from start to finish that they loved movies and they loved making movies. And you just do not get that feeling in horror movies anymore. It's just completely wiped out. It's completely gone. It's a baseless and a plain white paper genre nowadays that you really know exactly what movie you're going to walk into every time you go to the movie theater. And I'm just really bummed out about it. I don't mean to go on a tangent. Tangent's over. We'll get into Imaginary, but that's my little tangent. It was that type of movie that brought up those thoughts in my head, which those thoughts get brought up in my head almost every movie I go to nowadays. Anyway, sorry for going on that tangent. It's over now. Let's get into Imaginary. So what I didn't like specifically about Imaginary, I thought the dialogue was horrible. It had very cheesy, very basic lines that were just super corny at a lot of the times. There may have been a few that were okay, but a few scenes that were okay, but overall, super cheesy dialogue. The characters were bland and corny, as I said. You have the character of this stepmom, which is the lead character, and she's this children's artist or children's book writer or something like that. She makes children books. When she was little, everything that happened in this movie happened to her, but she does not remember it at all. So when her small stepdaughter, and she's trying to like befriend and become this perfect mother that she wants to be to these stepchildren. She's trying to be a really good mom, and it's just not working out for her because the girl or the teenage girl is just super aggressive towards her, which I thought did not work at all. It's super corny. You can tell exactly what they were trying to do, and it just did not work at all. I thought they were just trying too hard to make her like this asshole of a stepdaughter, and it didn't work at all. But she does do pretty well with the little girl until the little girl meets Chauncey, which is this imaginary bear. The bear starts to give this little girl a list of things to do, which ends up being like a ritual of things that he needs her to do to basically open the door to his imaginary world. And so that the girl will go in there and the demon or whatever it is will keep her in there forever. And it's kind of just that kind of storyline, and the mom's slowly figuring this out and what's happening, and eventually the imaginary door is opened and they have to go in there and rescue the little girl. Pretty basic storyline, a little bit original, but at the same time still basic and generic. There were some practical effects in this movie which were okay, but they kind of looked basic as far as the monster effects and stuff like that goes, so I can appreciate some of the practical effects, but it still just was not very top bar for me. There was no really standout actor performances for me, to be honest with you. No one really jumped out at me as a great performance in this movie, unfortunately. And the scares were horrendous. There was not a single jump scare that got me, which obviously I'm kind of faded to jump scares now, especially in these new movies. You look at a movie like John Carpenter's The Thing, when they were doing the blood test and how well that jump scare was performed, and the same thing in the same movie, The Thing, whenever they're operating on the guy and his stomach opens up. You look at those jump scares and you wonder where that type of setup and those type of jump scares went out of horror movies, because nowadays you know exactly when they're coming. The music starts to get low and eerie. The movie starts to get silent. They're walking down a hallway or they're walking in a basement and it's completely quiet, and you know exactly when a jump scare is coming, and it's, I don't know, I just don't like that. It's super, I don't know, it's super ununique and unthoughtful. I just miss whenever directors really knew how to build suspense in a scene and build up a jump scare to where the audience really did not expect it. Nowadays, you know exactly when a jump scare is coming a minute to 2 minutes before it's going to happen. And it's super ineffective. One other big complaint that I had about this movie is how after each little twist in the story happened, the director felt like that, or the actors, whoever wrote the script or directed it, I don't know if it was writer or director, they felt like after every twist and turn in the movie, one of the actors in the set had to stop and explain almost directly to the audience what just happened. Like, we can't understand movies at all. And I don't know if this is just me or if you guys noticed it. Maybe go watch the movie, come back and let me know if you guys also notice this as well. But I'll give an example. So on the list of conjuring this demon and opening the imaginary door, one of the things you have to do is something that hurts. So the mom and the stepdaughter and this grandma, which is the neighbor, is trying to go open this door to save the little girl. So to do this list, the mom has to do something that hurts. So she stabs her hand with a pair of scissors. They put it in there, they start the ritual, and it doesn't work. The mom, and this dives into horrible dialogue as well. The mom then turns to the stepdaughter and starts dogging on her about how her real mother is worthless, how she's a horrible stepdaughter, and something like that. And again, delivered horribly. It was not good dialogue at all, horrible acting. And I'm sorry to dog on these actors, I just can't help myself. When I see a bad movie, it's bad. I have to say it's bad because these are my real thoughts. But she dogs on her stepdaughter, and that obviously we know, if you've seen any movie and you have a competence of understanding, you know that she did that because you had to do something that really hurts, and it hurt the daughter really bad, so it's going to work for the ritual. Obviously you know that. If you were watching the movie and you've seen the scene and you watch everything before it, you know exactly what she's doing. But they feel the need to have the grandma on the set to then stop and literally explain everything, talking about how the stab in the hand wasn't enough and you had to do something that really hurts and now it's going to work. And it just really completely pulls you out of the movie. And it's, I don't know whose decision that was, but there are multiple scenes like that in the movie and it really bothered me. I don't know why I'm going on a tangent about this movie, but these are my thoughts. So overall, I guess you guys know that I did not like this movie very much at all. I will go ahead and give it a 2 stars just because 1 star is completely one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I wouldn't put this movie into this category. It just happened to conjure up all these thoughts in my head for where horror movies are going nowadays. So that's what brought out the tangent. Overall, the movie I think is about 2 stars. Not a good movie, but not like the most hideous thing I've ever seen. Just super generic, super boring. I guess if you're like 12 or 13 and you want to go to the movies with a group of friends, it's fine. But other than that, if you're a real horror movie fan, like fanatic, this one's not going to do anything for you at all. And unfortunately, it's just another title to Blumhouse that is just super boring and generic. I probably use those words 50 times in this video, but that's the only way I can explain this movie is boring and generic. So I'm giving it a 2 stars. Didn't do much for me, unfortunately. Hopefully we get some better horror releases coming up, so I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. So let me know what you guys think of Imaginary. Did I dog on it too much? Are you guys with me with all those thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Or did you love this movie and think that it was super unique and original? Let me know. I would love to have a conversation with you guys down there. And hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one.